People come to me and say, oh, but I only use fresh herbs in cooking. I'd never use dried. And my answer to that will be, well, why? Do you make a cup of tea with fresh tea leaves? Do you use fresh coffee beans when you make your cup of coffee? One of the things that people need to understand is that fresh herbs and dried herbs are different. When you have a fresh herb, you will notice when you crush that leaf and you smell it, you have lots of very delicate, light, volatile top notes. And these are wonderful. And we use fresh herbs in dishes that are not being cooked, torn through salads, making a pesto. And we also use fresh herbs in dishes that are only cooking for a short time. We might be doing a stir fry, you might be making an Asian soup. Fresh herbs will work beautifully for those lovely fresh flavour notes. But remember, your fresh herb is comprised very much of water. When that herb is dried, the water content is reduced right down to around about 10%. And during that process, the volatile oils that are in the cell structure of the herb leaf are actually concentrated and become extremely stable. We then use a dried herb when we want to have a strong flavour that will last through the whole process of cooking. If you put a lot of fresh herbs in the beginning of making, say, a slow cooked dish that's going to cook for a couple of hours, then you will find that by the time that dish is cooked, most of those lovely delicate top notes will have dissipated and you won't really have very much flavour. But if you use a dried herb, the dried herb flavours will infuse readily into the dish that you're cooking because they're not bound up with all of that water content. They are very stable and that flavour will remain. So the flavour of the thyme or the oregano, the basil, whatever it is you've put in as a dried herb will last right through until the end of cooking. If you still want the flavour of a fresh herb in that particular dish that you're making, say a spaghetti bolognese, and you really want the flavour of fresh basil as well as having used dried herbs, then by all means add some fresh basil, but only in about the last 15 to 20 minutes of cooking at the very longest. And that way you'll still retain that lovely freshness. Therefore, keep in mind that a fresh herb is different to a dried herb. We're not necessarily saying that in all applications, dried herb is a substitute for fresh. They are different and they behave differently in cooking.